Lee.
Hi, Sarah.
It's good
Thanks
to see you
so
again.
much for joining.
Sure, always a pleasure to see you. Yeah,
It is.
great.
So I'm excited you're going to be on our season again, and this time performing your show of Pigs and Pianos.
Yes, the theater show that's sort of the story of my life in a condensed 75 minutes with music and acting. I don't tap dance, but I do act and no singing either. There's one very dramatic scene where I climb on top of the piano. That's my favorite part of the thing. And
Wow.
I get to imitate all of my various therapists that I've had over the years, which is sweet revenge. So that's what you have to look forward to.
Fantastic.
Great.
We spoke before, and we spoke a little bit about the origins of that project.
Yes.
And I will share clips from our previous conversation
Oh,
in
great.
preparation.
Wonderful.
But I want to talk a little bit more about the repertoire this time.
Right.
And I'd just like to start about the first piece because that's new to me. And it's Peter Wolf's Adagio.
Yes, the Adagio, his name is Peter Wolf. It has the accent aigu over the first E. And Peter Wolf is the cousin of my very first piano teacher, whose name was Veronica Wolf at the time when I began my piano lessons. It's now Veronica Cohen. And she's an experimental electronic composer, and she's also a dean at the Jerusalem Academy of Music and Dance now. But she was an 18-year-old piano student when she came to our house in our neighborhood to give piano lessons. And I've always had a very, very sweet rapport with her, a lifelong bond. And in the last, I think this shortly before the COVID time, that her cousin Peter, who I did not know, out of the blue, because she had given him my contact info, he sent me some recordings of these pieces that had recently been played in Hungary. A set of 24 sort of jazz-inspired preludes that he'd written that were published by Universal. And I was just immediately struck with them, and they resonated deep in my heart, and they're very beautiful pieces. The slow works are quite moving, and the fast ones are lively and really engrossing. And infused with that kind of lively Hungarian spirit of my first teacher. And so I immediately started learning some of them. But the piece begins with this adagio as a kind of a tribute to my first piano teacher, and sort of saying, well, here's the source of where all of this stuff has come from.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So tell us a little bit about your composition, Canción para dos Niñas.
Yes, this is a piece I wrote in my, I guess it was my late 20s, early 30s. It's a little bit vague to me now, but I was living in the Bronx. I was living in a not very nice apartment, not a very great neighborhood either. Difficult time in my life, and just beginning gender transition. So my upstairs neighbors were, there was a single Dominican mom, and she had two little girls. And various gentlemen callers would visit, usually at the handy hour of about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and she had no rug. And what would happen is the men would come over, and then the kids would wake up, and they would start running back and forth, as only children can do, and wake me up. I had insomnia for months and months and months and months. And I literally, at first I would take the broom handle and hit the ceiling with it, go to bed, like that. But I thought, okay, now if everything in life truly is an opportunity, what's this an opportunity for? And I thought about the two kids who were, when I saw them outside of the apartment, they were cute and adorable little girls, and I thought I had this fantasy where instead of acting like a savage, like if they woke up, sweet little things, I would lullaby them to sleep with a nice little Dominican-style lullaby. So I wrote this piece called Canción para dos Niñas, a song for two little girls. And it actually has two cross rhythms. It starts with one rhythm, then it morphs into the other as if it's the two, and then you sort of put them together. Yeah. That's the idea of the piece. And it's a beautiful little piece. I'm very proud of it and so forth. The only thing is, it never put them to sleep. Its practical purpose was lost. But the music lives on, and I'm sleeping better now too. So, so everything's all right.
Fantastic. So we should note that you, I mean, in addition to all these contemporary composers, you also play music of Mozart,
Yes,
Haydn,
right.
Chopin. So it kind of seems, and you're telling your story, right?
That's
And
right,
so
yes.
so each between songs or pieces, you get up and tell stories from your past. So it seems like you're kind of time traveling every time you either stand up or sit down on the bench because you're going to a rather different century of music or a different era of your life. How do you, when you time travel, how do you keep it, how do you know, how do you immerse yourself in that current moment that you know?
Well, it's kind of interesting. I mean, in essence, anytime you play a piano recital, you're sort of doing that. I mean, assuming it's not an all one composer program, you're playing a lot of different pieces of music by different people from different centuries and different countries, and it's sort of like world traveling and time traveling. And I'm used to doing that. For me, when I worked up the show, and it was very much the inspiration of Bonnie Barrett of Yamaha, and then a director named Philip Baldwin, and a director that he had worked with named Sal Trapani, and both Sal and Philip, coming from a theater world, inspired me so much with they trained me, really to what does an actor do in the course of something like that. And for me, the hardest part was memorizing the dialogue. When I first brought this thing to them, I said, well, I have a general idea of what to talk about and what to do. And I said, I'm used to talking to audiences. I can wing it and, do that. I said, no, you have to write a script. And it was so painful to write that all down. And then to literally memorize it, because I'm used to being impromptu, certainly in music. I mean, you've memorized it, you're playing the same notes, but it's never the same performance. But I had never really done that with words. And as we got into the serious rehearsals shortly before the first performances of the thing, there was a couple of times I just choked up and I cried, and because it was like going to the therapist's office and revisiting these key moments in my life that were very traumatic in some ways for me. Growing up as a transgender kid in an era when that word didn't exist, and things like that were just buried. You didn't talk about it, you hid that was closeted, et cetera, et cetera. And then coming forth in the late 1990s, and then how did that affect my life, and so forth. So this is the arc of the story that's told. And now, having finally, sort of comfortable with the memorization of the dialogue, it feels like a very through-composed piano recital for me. It's like, I don't think about, oh, this is hard now, what do I think about next, et cetera, et cetera. It's finally, you can execute it one after another. But admittedly, for the audience, of course, I think it's supposed to be kind of this wild movie with all these scenes, and then when it's all over, it's like, wow, what I just saw. I mean, we all know, we go to the movies, we see people's lives portrayed like that. And
so what message do you want the audience to take away from this show?
Well, that's the toughest question you've asked me so far, because I feel like I should answer that with, well, audience will,
I'm going to make them do this, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
and I'm not sure there's really a message per se. I mean, it's my story of coming to grips with who I am, with the reality of who I am. And in some sense, maybe that's a cautionary message, because certainly along the way, I could look around and see people who I thought would never really get there. We've all met people who are closeted. I don't mean literally closeted, but just people who, there's sort of a shell to them, and for whatever reason, to be self-protective, they don't reveal a lot of who they are to people. And as a musician, I don't have that luxury. I always felt like whenever I'm playing the piano, I'm giving my truthful self, and I didn't want a life of not giving that. I thought that wasn't fair to myself, it wasn't fair to anybody. So I mean, maybe the message of the show is Shakespearean. It's to thine own self be true, and I guess hoping that audiences are made of so many different kinds of people that they'll see something of their own story, and that's something that resonates and perhaps inspires them or gives them belief in themselves. Or I think it's a hopeful show. I mean, it ends on it's got a lot of stories, some of which are pretty frustrating and upsetting, but it ends on a very, very upbeat note of hope, and hoping that we're getting to a better generation and a better world than the one that I had to cope with when I was young.
And hopefully accepting other people's truths.
Yes, I believe so. Acceptance is the key, yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Well
That's
said, Lee.
fantastic.
Oh, thank you, Lee. Thank you.